like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Monday, July 20th, 2015 to order. First order of business is public forum. Anyone wishing to address us in public forum? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2. 2 would be to approve the minutes. 2.1 specifically, regular meeting minutes of the Board of Finance from June 15th, 2015. Comments, questions, suggested changes? I just had one, well, maybe two. At our last meeting, Peter asked about something have to do with fuel for Parks and Rec, and Sheila indicated that you were going to take a look at it. I don't know whether you had an opportunity to do that or not.
I did not.
Okay.
I will do that tomorrow, certainly.
Thank you.
Get back to you. Sorry.
Just a
Lou?
question follow-up, I suppose.
Yep.
There was a comment here about the Public Works was going to be doing the trenching for the science wing. That was a month ago now.
Right.
Is that done? Is everything good? Did everything proceed smoothly?
My understanding is that it did.
Good. Ken?
I don't know, apropos of Sheila on page 2, I think you were to provide us with a report on the GHS project.
I have the numbers for you that I will talk to you about when
Okay.
I have my chance to.
Okay.
to us?
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Anybody else?
I had one,
Mike?
just for clarification, on the very last page, when Mr. Gammerman was commenting on the high school, just at the end, it says demolition will begin in early July, and there's a 7 there, just don't want
Yeah,
there to be
the 7, yeah.
any I think it's just a typo, so,
2017.
yeah, right, yeah,
In 2017.
early July is perfectly fine,
Good.
thanks.
Anything else?
Move their acceptance as amended.
Yep. Is there a motion to accept as amended?
So moved.
Second? Second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
think
All
I
in
can-
favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstain?
I'll abstain.
We have a quorum and we have a majority, so they pass. Item 3, correspondence. Let's start with 3.1, pension committee minutes. Any comments, questions?
I just have a general question.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit, a couple of meetings back, about how the performance has fallen off a little bit. Have we made any adjustments? I know we're looking at a few things, and I'm just wondering if anything's transpired or we've taken any action.
The pension committee has been reviewing different managers and replacing one specific manager, Wentworth. I think you may have noted at one point several months ago, or the board noted. So that has been done at the last meeting, and they are still in the process of making other changes. The pension contribution for both the town and Board of Ed was made in early July. So there's excess cash in the account right now that they also are seeking to invest so they don't lose out on any interest if they can.
I have a comment. Go ahead. Please. I have a comment regarding the performances. The pension investment performance is 2.16% year-to-date. Target is 7%. It's my understanding on a defined benefit plan, if we underperform, does the town have to contribute more to attain the 7%?
What happens is the contribution is based on a 3-year average market value. So it's a smoothing technique that helps us to smooth out our contributions from year to year. So if we have one bad year, it doesn't create a spike in the contribution. So theoretically, yes, but we had 2 good years prior that will help us, kind of smooth out the contribution. And there's other factors that go into the contribution besides just the performance that also has a big impact on the actual contribution itself. So.
Thank you.
Our investment year is a fiscal year here, right? So we're only about halfway through?
No,
We're at the end.
We are at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
I had a follow-up to the motion this board passed a couple months ago now, relative to engaging Milliman to take another look at the salary component of their projections.
Yes.
Has that engagement begun? Has it started?
Yes, we're still in the data collection stage because at the same time, we are also compiling the data for the annual evaluation
Evaluation.
and the OPEB valuation,
Right.
which we haven't done for 3 years, so it's a lot of data. We're trying to gather that all at once, and Milliman should have all of the data in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we expect September delivery.
Okay.
On almost all of-
December?
September.
September, okay, good. All right, anything else on pension? Standing Building Committee, 3.2. Actually, we have several sets here.
Two sets at least.
Yeah, two sets plus a special meeting, right? What,
Special meeting, I think, was at the end.
anybody have any questions on, was it the June meeting?
June, I have a couple.
Okay.
June we received by email today, but I know that I had reported on it, and
July.
because I had, I think, a draft of it, and
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah,
Gamerman reported on my behalf, and then July came in today as well. So
How is the membership? Are they up to speed on members, or are they still short?
they're still short. I believe they're looking, 7 is the composition of the committee.
Okay,
I think they're holding at 5 right now.
okay.
And I think they'd like to have 7 plus 2 alternates, but the alternates usually never, usually there's not, it hasn't been alternates for as long as I remember. It's really been just 7 members. So 2 short, I think.
All right, Ken, you had some questions on,
Yeah, I had two questions on June first. On item 9 on June, page 3, on the update on the Adams elevator replacement, indicated that they're on a very tight schedule. Do they anticipate having the work completed before the start of the new school year?
I do not believe so.
Will that create a hardship for the handicapped children?
No, I believe that there's some sort of and I'm looking at the Board of Ed reps in the back there. I do know that there are some contingencies in place for the elevator project not being complete. I do remember at, I believe, the building committee meeting, there was some discussion. I think the last one, I don't know if Mr. Sands was there or mentioned it, but I guess what they're going to do is they'll change locations of class. If there's anybody, for example, that has an issue, they're on crutches even, okay? So they're not in a wheelchair, they're on crutches, they break a ankle or something. They will actually relocate classrooms so that it's available for that student, so they don't have to commute stairs. It's a temporary fix. We're talking about, a month or 2.
That's it?
That's it, yeah. I don't know what the worst-case scenario is, but I know that there's issues with the elevator cab order, and it's delayed, and it takes time. They knew it right from the beginning that it may take 3 months or so to do this. But they couldn't start any abatement, they couldn't start any work on the project until school's out. And then it's a 3-month project from there, so they knew that there was going to be issues. But they'll work around it.
I had a second question on the June minutes, and that's also on the same page, the item 8, the update on Melissa Jones Security, that Mr. Grinham noted that there's a change order request for Silva Petrocelli for another $17,600 for additional architectural services. Do we know why those architectural needs were not anticipated earlier?
Well, okay. What ended up happening was the project initially last year was going to go out. When it was determined that the district-wide security upgrades could not include the Melissa Jones project due to timing, the project was ultimately delayed. When that was delayed, there were subsequent changes, and it had to go out and be rebid. There had to be additional work that, just because of the delay, the firm ended up encumbering more expenses to do it. to do the project because of the delay. And it was actually in the best interest of the town to do that. Because they were not going to get the project done, bid, awarded, and complete in the
I
time
see.
frame that it needed to. So
Yeah, Jones was always a special case.
Jones has always been a special case because the amount of work that has to be done there to bring it up to the security level that they needed.
Anybody else, questions on the June 2nd meeting?
Yeah, maybe a question on item 10. If I'm understanding item 10 correctly, I think maybe it's a tip of the hat to our Engineering and Public Works Department. I think they were able to trench for the utility connections for the science wing, but it looked like they were going to have some costs for the connections from some private contractors for water and fire. I was wondering if we knew what those costs were and what the kind of bottom line savings was. No?
Not
Too
yet,
soon?
not yet.
Okay, it just seemed like some good news.
It was,
Yeah.
it was ultimately good news that Public Works was able to do the work that was much more expensive by a private contractor.
Mike, I was just wondering, I noticed that the air conditioning for the weight room was higher than anticipated. Why is it, why weren't we anticipating the higher air conditioning costs?
Not so sure about the anticipation of it being higher. I know that the way that it was bid out, it was actually bid out, the renovation of the science wing. It was bid out with 6 deducts, which are deduct alternates. It came in within budget. This is going to July, so I don't know if you're referring to the July minutes now? Which
No,
is fine.
June, I'm still on June.
You're still on June?
Yep.
In July, I guess, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at those, but the bids did come in and they were within budget, but there was a $100,000 contingency that was going to be part of the deduct for the air conditioning. I will tell you that there was a lot of discussion about why air conditioning was or was not in the project from the beginning, and it was really a cost measure to make sure that the cost, you really don't know when the bids are going to come in, what's going to be high, what's going to be low. You should have seen the fluctuations in the 6 different bids that came in. They were really different. And this low bid was it was vetted very well because it was such a huge discrepancy between high and low. And then there was a middle ground. The air conditioning numbers were all over the place. So the way they did, this is very common to bid it with numerous alternates to be able to look and see what you pick and choose, and the air conditioning was one of those. It's not a requirement, but it's certainly cheaper to do it now than do it later. And that was a discussion the building committee had, especially when you're talking about a fitness room or a fitness center or fitness area where you're not going to have air conditioning. So right now, the base bid is fine. It's just a matter of when the project gets done, if there's cost savings and they're seeing contingency that's going to be available to use it for the AC, they'll put it in. But that's the one that's going to be included at this point.
Thanks.
We approved that bid this morning for $827,000 with a deduct of $70,000 on the air conditioning. And that $70,000, Michael's correct, we held that out of the bid as the contingency number.
The budget for the project overall, I believe, was
$750.
$750. So
That was
if you
the
take
approved.
827 and you subtract out 70,000, you're right on budget.
So that's why, and that was the low bid out of 6. And right now, I will tell you, being in the industry, contractors are hungry. And, or I should say they're hungry, but they're not so hungry that they're willing to just give away numbers. And this firm is hungry for work and the other ones were not as ready and willing to do the project at this number. So.
Anything further on the June 2nd?
Yeah, the June 2nd, I'll piggyback out the special meeting they had on June 22nd, where they took on this whole issue about the CRACOG bid on the roofing project at Jones, I believe? No, Guilford Lakes. Guilford Lakes. Is that being completed before the start of school?
Yes. Yes, that is.
there's no problem on that.
No, there's no problem with it. And, you know, you hear structural repairs and you think, geez, what's happening? It's just, it's a precautionary, some of the beams, the wood beams were splitting, and it had nothing to do with the roof coming down or anything. It was just for precaution. They're putting up some, I think some girts or something like that to further support it.
All right. July 7th minutes?
I have a couple here, too. On the 7th?
Yeah, I have one item on the 7th. You go on page, whatever page here. Item 16. A problem has developed with the Adams Middle School windows that were installed 5-6 years ago. And again, that was a July 7th meeting. It looks like we've engaged the town council, Pam Millman, to take a look at how we might recover some costs on that.
I'm sorry,
The Adams Middle School windows.
Yeah.
Turns out there was an apparent problem with the installation, and I guess we've engaged Pam to look to see where we can recover some funds, because it's, what, $20,000 repairable?
The manufacturer claims they weren't installed
Installed properly.
properly.
Okay.
Don't have an update for
No
you.
no update, okay. Good. That's all I had on the 7th.
I have one. Item 11, this concept of the energy-saving performance contracting,
Yeah.
that's interesting to me.
back
I
again.
don't know where that's at, but this is an organization apparently that will defer it's almost like legal contingency. You know, they'll defer their earning until they recover. They help you recover savings.
Yes.
What percentage
They
will
get
they
paid right,
realize?
they get paid right away.
But what percentage do they realize? There has to be a formula where they determine how much money was saved, and what percentage do they then take for themselves?
I have to admit, I don't know what the
Does anyone know that?
the exact percentages of that. I know how it works, and it is actually, it's described pretty well in here. I was
Right, it was
pretty-
well captured.
What it is really, it's you're leasing equipment for, right from the start, and as you start making savings, you don't make your first payment until 1 year after you're getting the savings. So your savings are actually going into the payment of the lease into them. So they're getting paid immediately, but it's really almost like you're leasing equipment, and then as you're saving, and they're guaranteeing the 20% cost, that 20% is just being realized into paying them and paying back the leased equipment. That was one of the questions. When you hear lease, you think, so we don't own the equipment. Well, you do own the equipment and the
FMV
systems.
for-
It's just a wordage, it's just a word of the way they call it a lease as opposed to, you know, that's the best way to describe it. It's hard to describe the way it actually is, the way it's named. That's all.
There are some of us in this room who are a little gun shy with these types of arrangements because,
In the 19th century, we dealt with Johnson Controls.
thank you very much, and we could never really quantify.
That was ancient history.
Yeah, it was, we couldn't quantify it. Now, clearly, there are more significant tools available today to manage and monitor those types of programs than there were in the early 90s, I think.
Yes.
Had to be, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
Clearly, it sounds as if the Board of Education is interested in any opportunities for savings, as well as, you know, we have some physical plant out there that needs some upgrading. I believe the report that the board received from a consultant, is that a year and a half ago now, listing out significant capital expenditures. If this is an avenue to get to some of those capital expenditures, and there are savings, you know, there are legitimate associated energy savings to help pay for some of these things, why wouldn't we take a look at it?
Yeah, the building committee simply recommended that the Board of Ed continue to look at this
Look at it.
and formulate an RFP.
Good.
And there was a presentation literally the week after, I guess, the Board of Ed meeting. So I don't have a report on that, but
Okay.
I know what the building committee did.
Good. Other questions on the 7th? None? All right. minutes, the draft of the minutes from the special meeting on the 22nd of June, where the expenditure for the award, the bid award to Munger for the construction at Guilford Lakes. Anything else on that? Nope. Good. Good. All right. Item 4, review and accept the report of expenditures to the Board of Education. Linda and Amy? Welcome. What would you like to bring to our attention?
The expenditures for the month of June were $8,835,449.34 to be exact, which is 98.39% of the budget compared to last year where it was 97. We are projecting to end with some amount of money, not a large amount. It's still somewhat fluctuating because there are bills that are going to be paid from the fiscal year for this month, so that's pretty much it.
Okay. Specific questions?
Yeah.
Ken?
Okay, two questions. One on salaries, actually. Salary number is high compared to last year, but I was just concerned about two things. One is the paraprofessionals line, and the second would be the line for co-curricular.
I'm sorry?
Co-curricular, that seems to be overexpended, both of those.
The para one, I think I just made a mistake when I did the budget, honestly. I think I just messed up and under budgeted for paras for last year. I really think it was just my mistake.
Probably related to the kindergarten change.
Yeah, I've gone back over everything, and the only thing that I can go back to is the budget number is lower than what it should have been.
The number from the previous year, though, was similar to those.
Previous year
I didn't
was-
think any anomaly of it because it was 110 and 112%.
I've gone back over it several times, and I haven't found anything that has jumped out at me specific that says, oh, here's your one mistake. I honestly don't have an answer other than somewhere along the line I made a mistake.
Even with the mistake, and it happens to everybody, the Board of Education will be able to absorb those additional costs.
Yes.
And still deliver, I think 35,000 is the number
Right.
that's on this document.
Right,
Okay.
right.
But as
Covering
Mike
that.
says, it was
And-
100 and, it was
Yeah, it was
10%
110
over
last year.
last year, too.
Right.
We approved at Monday's meeting a budget transfer
Right.
to fix the overexpended lines with some of the underexpended lines, and still ended up with.
But I would echo Ken's sentiments, though, it is consistent year over year at about the same percentage, and that same percentage is there for co-curricular, too.
Yeah, same thing
About
for
13% over last year as well as this year, so.
The last one?
Has
I was gonna say,
that been addressed in the coming budget?
Yes,
It
yes,
has been.
yes.
Other questions?
Yeah, Matt, I have one. With capital, is the percent, the budget was underexpended in capital. And so that's just what everybody was talking about. Some of that money will be redistributed or has been, maybe at your meeting already, to cover some of these overexpended items. Capital, though, always strikes me as a target area where is there something that didn't get done that's being postponed to next year, or got canceled completely? Like, why was capital under?
Capital, actually,
It's not going, right?
the site improvement line is over by $35,000. So we did some extra projects for site improvement.
All right?
The other lines in there are equipment, and actually there's a credit of about $32,000 that is for the technology lease that was due back to us that has not been booked yet. So capital's going to be pretty close to being even, maybe about $500 to $1,000, the category itself.
Okay.
But we actually did extra projects more this year. Some money was spent early in the year to finish off some of the summer projects that Cliff was working on, so we could get some of those done where we ran into some costs, extra costs that were needed. And there have been some additional costs for the high school and the science wing that we've picked up. So we've overexpended capital.
Okay.
Can I stay on capital for a
Yeah,
second?
all right.
You're going to reverse out some credit, so
Right.
that helps. But the two encumbrances, most of my questions today are about encumbrances and what's going to stay and what's going to go. There are two encumbrances in capital. Do you anticipate spending those to their full extent?
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right, Lou, go ahead, you had.
It's funny you touch on technology, Elise, because that's my other question really, which is, there's a note in the minutes, your July 13th minutes, and it basically says, Linda, explain that this is likely the final lease agreement since the technology budget will be established to maintain and update future initiatives. Now, I recall the whole point was it was a 5-year ramp up and we've gotten that equipment. I mean, is there really a projection for the foreseeable future that, other than to maintain existing equipment as it comes off, we're not going to be spending more in technology? We're like at a level that's sustainable?
Actually, those minutes have been amended because the technology director said that this is not going to be the last lease.
Okay.
So there are going to be others, but it's going to go into a phase-out program so that we can reduce our dependency on the leases and have our budget up to where we can maintain about $500,000, I think is his goal, of equipment purchases every year, directly out of our budget without leasing it. So it's going to be a tapering off program of dependency on the lease. And this is not the last one, he says.
Okay. So this is not the final word on that. The next round of minutes will be more interesting on this topic.
Yes.
Okay. We wait with anticipation.
Others? Mike?
Actually, I did have one question on encumbrances that you may be bringing up, but it has to do with safety, sanitation, upkeep.
Yep, that's one.
$152,000. So the question is how much of that is going to stay, or is it expenses that are going to be for this earlier part of the summer and then billed later?
I've pushed on getting some of them reduced that we're not going to use, but there's some that we added for some of the work that was started in June at the science wing and some other grounds work that was done. So it's not going to be $152,000 by the end of July, but it's not going to be zero.
Staying on encumbrances, I noted in the minutes, couple of minutes, that you've made the decision to adopt the new math textbooks. Is that coming out of the encumbrances for this year?
Yes.
That will be expended from 2015?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I
Are they-
believe it should already be it's part of that 91,000 under textbooks.
Okay.
That's the bulk of that is the math textbooks, so they were.
Yeah, because
printed by
I think it's
kids.
88,000
Yeah,
for
it's
textbooks. right?
88,000,
Okay.
yeah.
The
And-
textbook line will be expended, is what you have in there.
It's at 71%, might go up a little bit more, but that's about where it's going to end up. So not 100%, but more than we had been running all year.
That was the big purchase, though.
Excellent. All right, others?
I had a question
Well, certainly.
on the minutes of the Board of Ed on June 8th. On non-renewal for staffing reduction, that there are 3 teachers that have been, am I reading this correctly? That we are dropping 2 teachers on the elementary level and 1 on the middle school level?
Definitely.
Item 9.1.
My minutes are really screwed up.
Upon a
Rescind
motion
list
made
of
by
non-renewal.
Ms. Case and a second by Mrs. Sullivan. There we go. Board voted unanimously to ratify the non-renewal
Sorry.
of staffing reduction.
I think they go through this exercise of non-renewing, non-tenured teachers.
Yeah, there's a
Sure.
regulation that you have to,
But there's no staff reduction.
well,
Well,
there
were
is.
staff
There
reductions in
is.
the budget.
There is due to declining enrollments at the elementary level.
I think
Okay,
particularly
so there-
Calvin Lead and Cox have
Cox,
particularly
yes.
small kindergarten
sections.
classes this year, and it would continue to be small for going forward, so we did.
Those were forecasted during the budget season, and they
Right.
were included in the personnel counts
Right.
Yes.
that we
And
talked
then,
about.
due to some of the retirements and resignations that we've had, we were able to keep some of the staff and just move around. So where they may have
Been on the list.
been on the list, they were told that no, they're staying to fill vacancies. So
So one at Cox,
We are
one
still
at Wheaton,
reducing
one at
it.
Baldwin.
It is. Yes, one at Cox, one at
yeah, Cox,
Baldwin.
Baldwin,
Calvin Lead.
and Lee.
Little quick question, you said, did you refer to July 13th minutes for the Board of Ed a few minutes ago?
Haven't seen that.
I can't see them either.
Oh, this came.
That's the
in-
agenda.
That's the agenda.
Oh, that's the agenda. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
They were the June 8th minutes. They answered me anyway.
I know.
Not right by
I
you.
know.
Well, he did say June 8th.
No, he said
First time.
July 13th. Ken and I have been
Then
looking
I'm
for
hearing
those.
things
We've been
too.
looking for those minutes.
I said June 13th.
Also,
We're ready
Talked
to
about
commend you
the-
on your efficiency, in getting those minutes out.
Again, and I don't know whether everyone saw this as well, but it looks as if you guys are moving agenda items at your meetings.
Sometimes we
It
do.
it looks pretty
Sometimes.
significant. 1, 2, 7, 8, back to 7, 9.
We've had a
9.6.
couple, the last two meetings, we've had
Yeah.
Then it goes
presentations where we'd like
to
get
8
people
and
out.
3,
Yeah.
It's in their interest to leave
4,
early.
5, 6, 9.
Yeah, instead of having people sit in the audience the
Yeah.
entire meeting,
When we're
Okay.
having a big presentation.
they move people up so that they don't have to sit through the whole meeting.
Any other questions
creative.
for the Board of Ed?
I have kind of one big question.
Lawrence?
I was missing my packet this month, so I was wondering if you could kind of get to the bottom of that. I don't know if it's getting sent to another address, but I couldn't
I thought we
find
straightened out
it.
your address, but I will check on that again.
All right, I appreciate it.
Is there anything that you need to get from me? Do you want me to
I'll
resend
probably just take a
you?
look over later.
I can resend you
Get back
stuff
to
if
you
you
next
like.
month.
Okay.
The Board of Ed usually comes 2 weeks prior to our meeting, right? Isn't it about 2 weeks prior? We can-
1 week.
no.
1 week, yeah.
Full week.
1 week.
At least.
In all fairness, though, I was out of town, and they seem to collect stuff in the post office in all kinds of piles. So maybe one day I'll come in there and they'll say, oh, here's another pile.
All right, well, thank
Check
you.
on it.
Is there a motion to accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education in the month of June, for the month of June, in the amount of $10,583,291?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? None? Good. Thank you very much. Item 5, review and approve expenditures for town government for June 2015. Sheila.
Good morning.
Hello. Yeah. All right. Sheila, you gonna start with revenues?
I will start with revenues because that's the good news. Actually, it's all good news.
It is good news, you're right.
It's all good news.
Very good.
Okay, so what you have here are the preliminary June reports. The final June reports you'll get next month. So we've done a lot, though, in terms of getting the numbers ready for final. And as far as revenue goes, at this point, we've collected $1,002,000, which is 101.1% of our budget. So we still have July tax collections,
Yep.
ambulance, and probably a little bit of youth and family.
Right.
That could be another $98,000 or $100,000. I'm estimating about $68,000 on the fire and about
Right.
$30,000 on taxes and
Yep.
another few $1,000s on youth and family, which brings us to about 1.1 million.
Nice number.
So we're in very good shape here.
Yeah, and there are a couple of variant things that can be explained relatively easily. Building department, engineering and public works with all the permit stuff that's been going on.
Yes.
Health department similarly. That's a big piece. Tax collector, we have traditionally exceeded our tax collection rates, our projected tax collection rates over time. I know we're over 100% on current taxes, and we are continue to collect taxes from previous years.
We do,
Okay.
yes.
Questions on revenue? Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, those, obviously, the economic environment had changed some of those big categories, which is great. Youth and Family Services wasn't that long ago. They were struggling to hit their numbers, and there's obviously been many reports here, and you know, they have the staffing up and their billing under control apparently. I mean, is it likely that that is all as a result of that, or is there any one-time numbers in here that you know is going to bring it back down, or can we expect that to be meeting a higher number year after year?
I think that they will reach a point where they can only achieve.
I don't mean indefinitely. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is next year likely to see a higher budgeted number for that.
I think, well, next year's budget is just very similar to this year's. I don't recall exactly, but I don't think there was a really large change in their budget.
We did increase it slightly.
Slightly, yeah. But,
I mean, you don't want to unfairly burden them. I mean, they're, in a sense, they're providing a service. It's nice that they can back it up with the revenue as well. But, I mean, if they're going to, it's been a couple of years now that they've hit it and exceeded it. Okay. That's great.
Anything else on revenues?
Can you tell me just a little bit about the state money? It seems like we got even more state money than expected.
there was one municipal revenue sharing grant that was awarded after our budget had already passed, and so we got paid for that, and so that's a good part of that surplus.
Bad news is it's not going to be there next year.
No.
Well, we'll know what the budget for next year based on.
Biennial budget.
Anything else on revenues?
Just to be clear too, the fire department ambulance revenue is a month trailing, right? So that should
Right,
balance out?
That and
that's
youth and
the
family services.
68,000 that I.
That's what she said.
projected.
All right.
Good. Expenditures.
Okay, expenditures are at 98.4% obligated as compared to 95.3% last year. This is a timing issue. I booked the payroll accrual already. Last year I didn't book it for the preliminary report. So as far as payroll goes, we're projecting, well, we pretty much finalized payroll numbers. They're at $242,000 surplus. I think I was projecting 250 all along.
Okay.
So if you look in detail at the salary lines, there's several of them that are over slightly, and basically all that is, and we've discussed this before, is the extra 2 days. So we have 52 weeks and 2 days. The police department is the only one that actually budgets for that. The rest of the departments can generally absorb the small amount into their budgets, but that's what's going on.
What about the replacement salaries on fire, $120,000?
The replacement salaries in fire are due to workers' comp, firefighters being out on workers' comp, and those firefighters have to be replaced to cover the shift, and they're replaced at a higher rate than just the regular straight time hours. So that is an expense, and what happens is the workers' comp payments they come in later. They don't come in exactly when the employee is out, so there is a timing issue there. We'll get paid, but we may not get paid until 2016, and I'm going to take a look at that and see if it's worthwhile to accrue those workers' comp payments. We've never done it before, so we'll have to see. That's something to be determined.
It's comparable to previous years? This type of...
Our workers' comp experience has actually improved, so It just so happens that there has been a little bit more in the fire department.
How many firemen do you have out on this count?
I don't think, there may be one out right now, but I'm not certain.
There's at least one.
Yeah. I'm working on that. That will be adjusted by the final report.
During the year, we've had several out. And one a long term, which we settled about 3 months ago.
And that entire line item for replacement salaries is not just workers' compensation.
No.
No.
That's for when people are out on vacation,
Yes.
they're going to training, and then we need to cover shifts.
Yes.
So it's not just workers' comp.
Well, the overage, it may be more directly related to workers' comp. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so right now, we're showing a $525,000 surplus. But there's some things that, we will expend, obviously, in the next month. And so I'll give you a quick rundown on those. The capital we're looking at, generally, the capital is either encumbered or spent or continued in force, which we try not to do, but generally, we expend it. That's $205,000 that will come off this report if it's completely expended. There's $35,000 that's still remaining for reval, that will transfer that and set that aside in a reserve fund balance for reval. There's $108,000 in reserve for personnel that we will most likely request that we transfer to reserve because there's some contracts that have not been settled. And there is about $35,000 in legal bills from May and June that haven't been recorded.
Okay.
So that brings us down to $144,000. But of the $239,000 of encumbrances, there's some likely to be canceled.
Okay.
And we still have money due from the waste transfer station to pay the town for salaries. That's about 30. So it's a little bit, there's a few things here that have to be recorded before I can get a better number. But I would say that it's going to be in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000.
Okay.
And that's without the Board of Ed. I wasn't sure if they presented a number or not.
35 is a number that's on paper.
Okay.
Sheila, I would like to go to some encumbrances too, and in particular, let's go to police 129 and fire right below it at 130. Couple of items for police. Building maintenance and maintenance and service contracts. You got 25,000 in encumbrances. Are those going to be expended? Those would, maintenance for service contract would seem to be something, unless there's a once a year bill for that stuff. I thought that would be more on a regular basis.
I know the police chief was working on reviewing all of his encumbrances. He was on vacation, and so we're in the process right now of canceling
Canceling a lot of those.
But each one that has to be looked at individually.
Right.
And so not only does the department head look at it, we look at them as well. And,
Right. I also see almost 9,000 for operating supplies and then 7,500 for data processing. But then there's a companion at the fire department, over 15,000 for operating supplies. Is that stuff that has been ordered or is going to be ordered?
on the fire department, mostly they will stay. They have been ordered.
Okay.
On the police department, there may be some that need to be canceled.
Okay.
There's always historically encumbrances that get canceled.
Right.
It may be up to half of what's open right now.
On that same note, maybe 49,000 in encumbrances for equipment repair and maintenance for engineering and public works.
Right, and there's a lot of them. There could be 50 different, they're remaining blanket purchase orders from July 1st for the most part.
Okay.
So, we have to make sure we get all the bills in, and there's a lot of transactions there, so it's not as simple as just canceling them.
Is it fair to say, we're seeing a little bit of extra cost here for maintenance, which I think we were warned about, but is it also fair to say that our fleet age is lower, given some of the purchases?
Our fleet age is lower.
Okay. Just so counterintuitive.
A lot of that equipment purchases for other departments
Which gets billed
they
out.
buy parts for, which they, thank you, Matt, which they do bill out for.
Right.
Like, for instance, if they buy tires for the selectman's car, then they bill it to my department. Which I told them to hold off till next year, but that's okay.
I'm glad you said selectman's car,
Yeah.
as opposed to a police chief in Madison from a few years ago. He was the same guy that had some problems with a drive-in on the highway too, wasn't he? Yeah, not with you. Anything else on expenditures?
No, I did a quick calculation for fund balance, and I don't have it with me, but I pretty much know the number. Last year, our fund balance, we were at 6.85% are undesignated. This year, if we can muster up, which it looks like we will, about 1.2 million in surplus, and add that to our undesignated fund balance, we will have just reached 8%.
That's a little high for my blood. I know we have some considerations with market timing to go out for bonds, but I've always felt the 5 to 7 range was more applicable than the 5 to 10 range or whatever range it is. But 8% is a lot of money sitting on the sidelines, a lot of tax dollars sitting on the sidelines. But I understand completely well that the timing before we go to the bond market is critical. And then, so I suspect we're going to let it fall to undesignated fund balance for a while.
Yeah, we could have a discussion, because I
Right.
do have some,
There's got to be some projects that,
I do have some thoughts on where we can designate some of that
yeah, it
money.
would still be part of our fund
Yeah.
balance, but we're going to designate it.
Yeah, we've talked about where we can designate it. Now, Sheila's going to give you the other part of the good news. This year, we don't have to fund the internal service fund,
Yeah.
because we're looking at over $750,000 in there.
Right.
Joe, what was that word you said? I didn't hear what you said.
Internal service.
Internal service fund,
Right.
medical account.
Right.
Okay, use another term.
Yeah,
So, last year, if we remember,
we did.
we had to take some of that surplus
That's right, throw it to it.
and fund the internal service fund, the medical account,
Right.
to bring it in balance.
Right.
This year, we don't, according to Sheila's numbers. So I do have some thoughts on what to do with the undesignated fund balance, to bring it below the 8% if we want to bring it there,
Agreed.
which could provide for future use.
Yep.
But that's a discussion for
Right.
another meeting.
And what was our total increase in our budget for FY16? Is it 3 million? I can't, a couple of months ago, it's gone.
Yeah, it was, I don't even
Was
think
it
it
less than, was it less than 3 million?
2 and change, right?
2
Yeah.
and change?
Um,
Right, because the increase in the fiscal year 2016 budget over fiscal year 2015,
Yeah,
because in order to stay at 6 or 7%, you need 6 or 7% on the new amount in it, every year. You got to continue to add to that fund balance, and, that's a couple $100,000 that you need to just stay at that 7%.
yes.
Right? And we're in a great position right now.
we are.
We're in a great position, and you and I have had some conversations over time, but I think there will be an opportunity for us to potentially take care of some long-term issues that we know
Yeah,
are
I
coming.
mean, I think I can say it at this point. It might be time to start to fund a capital reserve account,
I agree. I
okay?
agree.
But I think let's get through the next round of funding for the high school.
High school, right,
We go to market next month or in a couple of weeks.
with an 8% undesignated fund
Let's see
balance.
what this 8% brings
Now,
us.
can some of this money be used to ease the burden on taxpayers?
There's always that possibility, but I don't want to put that out there yet, because we got into that habit before, and it cost us dearly.
One of the concerns, Jonathan, is, and Joe's alluding to the use of, specifically to the use of fund balance at a time. There were years ago, we had fund balances and we.
Maybe it was
we-
drawn down a little too far.
It was drawn down too far. The issue is funding recurring items out of undesignated fund balance. Using them for one-time expenses, for capital expenses,
That's different.
it's a different scenario, because if you use it one year and it's not available the next year, you gotta go find the amount you used the previous year in another revenue source, other than taxes.
Now, the other thing I'll bring up is that we had a very sluggish, maybe I'll use the term, pension performance in the market.
Right.
So we don't know where our valuation is going to come in.
Agreed.
When we look at our 2017 budget.
Right.
So you got to be careful
Yeah.
of how you use this money.
Right. I agree, but it gives, it's
So it's nice.
6 years ago, we didn't envision ourselves in this
That's right.
position. And-
So it's nice to have the cushion.
Right. It is.
Now, is there any consensus on what might be the right percentage? Is 7
It
to
depends who you
7.5
ask.
the right ballpark?
It depends who you ask. The rating agencies would want anywhere from, 10 to 15%.
To 25%, actually. They could go even
I
that
mean,
high.
you could look at some towns that has up to 25%.
Wow.
I mean, that's ridiculous in my mind.
That's taxpayer
That's
money.
really
set aside.
overtaxing.
I had one conversation with a rating agency, very informal, but he said 8% was somewhere within a AAA.
I think
rating.
that's comfortable,
Actually, 8% is, that may hold us back from getting a AAA rating. We have a very
Yeah.
good rating, but AAA are the 20 to 25% municipalities.
We're not getting there very quickly. And
There aren't that many municipalities that are AAA, by the way. Very, very, very few. I mean, consider the United States government's only double that.
And the question is always, what's the difference in basis points between AAA and AA plus?
outstanding interest rates.
Right. Well, that's a
maybe 50 basis points.
50 basis
Yeah.
points. Is it worth having that much money sitting on
That's
the
right.
sidelines?
That's right. A lot of it, I know we're on camera, but a lot of it's fluff.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, I do recall the rating agencies, one of the contributing factors for years is your ability to raise taxes to pay for your expenses. And this community has always been able to do that, even in the down years where the rating agencies were concerned about undesignated fund balance. We were able to pass budgets and collect the money and move forward, and we didn't get banged badly by the markets.
I remember a meeting we had in the Adams Choral Room. Remember that meeting?
I do.
Where they smacked us in the back of the head and said, you better,
You better put a plan together. You did.
and we did.
We did, and we're in great shape right now. So.
Well, this is definitely good news to be talking about instead of a shortage in reserves.
But these are not the final numbers, okay?
No.
Let's keep that in mind.
It's wonderful to be at a point where somebody's saying 8 might be too high, but that's a,
We'll be having conversations with the rating agencies at the end of the month, so we'll report back to you on what their findings and our comparable towns.
Very simple.
sure. All right, anything on warrants?
Key some of these warrants to departments usage, and I'm not seeing it. Looking at page 53, and there's a series of 4 invoices to a physician, psychological evaluations and consultations, but I can't seem to determine where that's going. I mean, who are these services for? Page 50.
This is the vendor who is the psychiatrist at Youth and Family Services.
Youth and Family Services.
Yes.
Ah, up there,
There you
okay. My error, I didn't
No
see
problem.
that subcategory. Okay,
I had a question on the New England Teamsters. There's $16,000 going out for pensions and withdrawal agreement of $14,000. Why are we sending a check to the Teamsters for a pension if we're basically running the pension?
They're not, the Teamsters are not in our pension plan.
Oh, they're not?
No, they're part of the Teamsters pension fund.
I see, okay. Thank you.
Other questions on warrants or special checks? Lou?
I had just one question regarding, in the general fund checks, there's a series of it's not, again, not big numbers, but I'm just sort of curious. Building, it's listed under building and health. Permits refunded, $3,100 to, it looks like to one individual. Like, there's the building permits, and why would they be refunded?
Project. In other words, they took out a building permit and decided not to build an addition or a deck or something.
Is there like, I'm just sort of curious about that. I mean, is there 100% refund there, or is there some administrative
No,
expenses?
it's usually whatever the building department requests a refund, and they request it up to the selectman's office, check request, which I signed.
It's not very common.
Yeah, I mean, I would just think there's some expense to the town in the process, even if the project doesn't go forward.
What they don't refund, I believe, is the state portion of it.
Okay, so we're not losing money other than the administrative expense of processing. But that,
The building inspector doesn't go out and inspect anything, it's just a matter of issuing the red tag.
okay.
I just have a couple of questions about some of the special fund weekly checks. These are just vendors that make me scratch my head, and I'm just curious as to what we're spending the money on. There's something that's coming out of the bioterrorism grant to make an emergency prepared brochure, and it's for some phone equipment at the fire department.
The phone equipment could be part of the reverse 911 system. That's what that grant paid for. And the emergency preparedness publication is something that we've done before, and it's a pretty valuable document.
Okay, I gotta take a look at that guy.
Dennis Johnson usually puts that out, he's our health director.
Okay, and then the other one was some money
Pays for
from
that.
the drug-free grant going to Madison Earth Care and K&G.
That is Youth and Family Services,
Okay,
and I don't know exactly what the expense
Okay.
is for, but
they're not big items, they
Yeah, no.
just caught my eye. That was it.
Anything else? No? No warrants? Medical benefits. We ended the year with a $758,000 surplus. Wow. Didn't look that way last September, but we're...
Well, and the month was very low.
Yeah, very low expenditure, that's right.
and then we saved $342,000 by the stop loss.
I agree. Is it, can we actually say that? Because we had stop loss last year, and that was at a different rate.
I was going to do that comparison.
Could you do that for me?
To see, the true, I mean, this is,
I was curious,
exactly
too.
the savings
Right.
by this, but not comparing it to,
Our decision to go to the
No.
lower, right, and pay higher. But there's no question, we made a good decision. We were $350,000 to the good when using that ISL. And the other good news is our employees appear to be healthier in June than some of the other months of the year, so.
well, there were
there were some-
20 of them, or at least that reached the stop loss.
Stop
so,
loss, yeah. But, as we all know, some of those may start to reoccur as of July 1st because the clock starts ticking at the close of the fiscal year, or start of the new fiscal year, so.
One thing I just want to point out quickly is the contracts were budgeted at 630, and that's how we made our contributions.
Contribution.
But they actually dropped down to 613. So if you look at the
Yep.
cost per contract, it's pretty consistent.
It is.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that
The
again?
very bottom line of the report,
Yep.
we budgeted for 630 contracts, which is a cost per contract of about an average $22,861.
Okay,
There were actually 613 average for the year, and that came out to $22,341 per contract, so it's very close.
Right.
It just means that we're budgeting
Yep.
pretty closely to actual, which is a good sign.
It is. And I think we're all, at this point, pretty much on the same page. That money's going to stay in that account. That surplus should stay there.
Yeah.
That one we're not talking about moving. Although it does get counted as fund balance.
They look at it
because-
as additional
Right,
flexibility,
right.
and they really want to see, 25% of the total claims
Claims,
as
yeah.
a fund balance, so we're not quite there yet.
No, we aren't. All right, capital projects? Mike?
Questions. First page. This has to do with the couple of encumbrances that maybe seem to be holding up these particular bonds as far as closeout, or whatever that trigger is.
Which fund?
216?
Very top, the upgrade of the police and fire radio system replaced with 2 radio towers. There's a 2.2.
That's an ongoing project. It's not.
If it's ongoing, I just didn't know.
Yes.
Where so it's ongoing, and then the town hall replacement windows at 128 encumbered.
That we haven't paid the final bill. The windows just got installed and they're still doing the final
They're still
inspection.
doing finals.
So in the punch list right now.
Okay. So that one, over a period of time soon, will probably eventually, that'll complete this bond.
Yes,
The one up on the top that we just mentioned is going to go on for a little while.
it will.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question on page 1, under set of projects for 21703. I see a town hall generator and electrical upgrade project. And I dug a little further, and there's another one in the second page, 21705, another town hall generator and electrical upgrade. But I've kind of lost track. Are these separate, or does one override the other? Or?
Yes, the first, I can't seem to get my fingers on my report, but the first one was, there was not enough money, so that was used toward the windows and the HVAC system. You can see that there were budget adjustments there for those projects, and then the generator will come out of the later project.
Okay, so it makes sense. It's reconciling out. Okay.
Good. Anything else? None? Building permits, same as the previous year, at the end of the year. Golf course?
Wonder where we are with the inquiry of interest in managing the golf course.
Still putting together RFP.
Okay.
Don't forget, that's going to be for next year,
Yeah, and that would be for next season. right?
next spring.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to understand this number, this fund balance number of $367,824.95. Is that all the discrepancies for all the years that we've been running a deficit?
It's the accumulated surpluses and deficits since the beginning of their operations.
And then most of the time, we've made up for that deficit with the transfers in, but this particular year, it looks like even with the transfer in, we're still short 37,000.
Yes.
Is that, okay, just, I'm trying to make sure I got a grasp on the numbers.
And this year is very similar to the past 5 or 6 years, quite honestly.
We hope that the transfers would cover their deficit over so many years, 3 or 4 years, and that they would keep even on current operations, but they haven't been able to do that.
Now, we've talked about it, raising the fees on occasion. Why don't we try it sometime? I mean, to cut the
I
deficit.
think they have.
They did, they increased them last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
By $1 per? The concern that the commission has had over time is, you drive price points up to a point where somebody's going to say, okay, instead of playing at Guilford Lakes, we're going to drive to Middlefield and play the Apple 9 because they're cheaper.
But, the thing is, it's a trial and error thing. I mean, we could try it 1 year, raise it 20%, and if our membership goes down, we could basically increase it the following, or decrease it the following year.
Yeah, the issue there is you're
Lose
concerned
people that
losing
have
people. People will go and develop an attachment to other courses. And it's certainly something that we can talk to the commission about, but.
I mean, they decreased the membership fee down to $199, I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and that didn't raise any more members. They raised it to $250, did away with the senior rate, so everybody pays $250, and that hasn't helped. And if I don't know if you play golf at all, Peter, but you go to any one of the comparable courses, like the Apple 9 in Lyman's, or Portland West up in Portland. It's the same fee or very close to it, and you can pay for a riding cart. And I think that's one of the problems with this course. You get older fellers, that want to ride, and the course can't accommodate a motor cart. And I think that's one of the problems. That's why they're not getting a lot of seniors on that course.
Is there any issue that this fund balance deficit keeps growing, and that we carry it?
Absolutely. That's why we've addressed that on several occasions. One of the things that Joe has mentioned is we're going to bid this out and see whether or not we can start raising, revenues by having more professional management. At some point, we're going to have to address that deficit.
Yeah.
That maybe what we do is some of the almost 8% undesignated fund balance, but the issue is we have to make a decision on how we fund it going forward. We've had discussions about moving it into the operating budget, much like what we do with park and recreation. We don't have a straight accountability for the beach, for instance, or the skate park, or any of those things. So where they are cost and profit centers. It may be at some point this is an operating expense, and we get what revenues we can from it. So.
Have we ever analyzed the demographics in terms of what percentage of the people that play there are Guilford residents versus?
Yeah,
We did that.
They have those numbers. The problem is, even if you wipe out the deficit,
Right. It's
the
sustained.
bleeding is going to continue.
It's right. And that's why we have to decide what
Yeah,
we're going to do.
you have to decide, either you're going to run it and it's going to be
As a cost center,
like we do at the beaches.
beaches, that's right.
Put a lot of money into it. The bonds, I think, are just about paid off.
Right.
It's a nice facility, it just doesn't get a lot of play. And there are other reasons which we can talk about later. Now, as a matter of fact, the Apple 9, the little research, that is managed by Billy Casper Group.
Is that piece is
Yeah.
separate?
Yeah.
Wow. Peter, last page, got some kind of breakdown on residents versus non-residents. You don't have to show that. Thank you.
You can't use a vehicle to help the older players.
Now,
Because
the town would have to make a significant investment to make or
to
construct
the
cart
vehicles.
cart paths because
To the
of
paths.
the terrain. It's
Okay.
not safe the way it is now.
Topography is undeveloped.
Sure.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
That's why it's
And
pretty.
it's a lot of ledge up there, a lot of blasting.
That's why it's nice.
That's why it looks pretty.
I mean, like a guy like me, I'll carry my bag of 4 clubs, doesn't bother me, but a lot of older guys can't do that,
Do it anymore. Sure.
but they're older than I am. so.
All right.
They have pull carts that are available, but you
Yeah,
still have to
right.
walk.
Still gotta walk. All right, anything else, Sheila, at this point?
No, I think I'm all set.
You're done?
Except for
Sophie, you have enough?
transfers.
Okay,
We
trans-
can talk about that for a second.
Okay. Why don't we approve the expenditures? Is there a motion to approve the expenditures for the town for the month of June, the amount of $2,080,649? Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Okay. Item 6, discuss and take possible action on recommended transfers.
I'm not going to recommend any transfers tonight.
That's kind of why I figured no paper, we probably weren't going to do it.
No, as I discussed earlier, there's some work that we have to do to maybe try to reduce some of the deficits that you see, so I'd like to wait till next month.
That's fine, fine by me. All right. Item 7, consider and take possible action on a request from the Board of Selectmen with regard to capital plan purchases. I think, and I don't know whether the items have changed, but we had tabled consideration last month. Was that because the items weren't?
Because we tabled it.
You tabled it. So we have to remove it from the table. And my question is, which one is that? Would that be the July 6th?
That would be the cab and chassis for the two
That's the
6-foot
cab
dump
chassis.
trucks.
That's the one that we're pulling off the table. Okay. Is there a motion to remove it from the table?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, none. All right, the Board of Selectmen at its July 6th meeting voted unanimously to award bid number 5-1516, which are two 2016 six-wheel dump trucks, cab and chassis, only to Bridgehaven Ford Sales and Service, DBA Gabriella Truck Sales of Milford in the amount of $220,640, subject to a recommendation from the Board of Finance in accordance with the April 9, 2013 bond resolution. Is there a motion that the Board of, for such a recommendation from the Board of Finance?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Comments, questions? This is not a surprise. We had talked about this 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago. All right, no comments or questions. Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? None. Board of Selectmen earlier today, July 20th, voted unanimously to award a contract with Tilcon under the state bid for parking lot improvements to the community center and Bittner Park in the amounts of $40,416 and $89,164, subject to a recommendation from the Board of Finance in accordance with the April 9, 2013 bond resolution. Is there a motion for such a recommendation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Comments, questions, Sarah?
What's getting done exactly? They're repaving it, they're tearing up the, like, what work is happening exactly? For the
Repaving,
repaving?
which is, talking about this lot.
Yes.
Yeah, repaving.
Okay.
Good. Any further questions? None? We'll call the
good.
question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good.
And that was in, both these projects are in the capital plan.
Yep.
Great.
Item 8, committee reports. Mike, anything on high school?
Yeah, we did, voted on both.
You will get.
I actually do, and I know this is possibly the last item, so I'll try to do this quick. I was at the meeting last Tuesday. A couple of things that really is for the board and for the public who are watching, just to let you know what's going on. Because a lot of people are asking what's the status of the project. The punch list on the third and second floors appear to be 98% complete. That means that this building is pretty well complete on the second and third floors. The first floor is at 65% complete. Remember, that's punch list. That means that the CM thinks that the project is done, punch list is created, and now they're going back and making any corrections to anything that's found. All but the auditorium will be 98% complete by the end of July. There were some issues with the auditorium stage. I won't go into the story. The building committee has dealt with it and is being addressed. It's probably already done at this point. There was some moisture in the stage. They had to rip the stage back up and they had to redo it. No cost to us as far as I know. It was just a moisture issue, but that's being dealt with. Canopy frame. That is running a little bit late. They're working very, very hard to get that in. But the canopy is hopefully going to be installed before the beginning of school. The artificial turf field, that has been approved to go in, and the design of that is in process, and they were just waiting receipt. There was a rebate. I won't give the amount only because I don't know exactly. There's a rebate that's coming hopefully, and that's looking for sign off eventually. The question is where that's going to go, and that's something that I'm sure the town.
Substantial?
It's a couple $100,000 at least. That's being looked at.
Explain that? What is it?
It's an energy rebate from the energy savings that was incorporated into the building, and utilities will look at that and say, okay, we'll give you a rebate. So, and that was all planned. This was even back when we were planning it. Furniture installation timeline. By mid-August, everything should be in. The site is pretty well closed at this point. For any traffic because of the amount of work going on. There's only one path to get to the back of the school. Other than that, it's really a very active construction zone, and they are abating the old school. So if you drive by, you'll see plastic everywhere in the windows. They are doing all that right now, and the companies are out there. The only other thing I want to mention, this is more of a comment that I've made to a couple of people. I did get a nice tour with Rick Maynard from Park.
Oh, Rick.
Rick Maynard with Park and Rec by Rick Nascenti, the principal. I asked for it, actually he offered it only upon an email that I had sent to him. The building is absolutely beautiful. There's no doubt that the community is going to be very happy with this, but I do want to mention something, and I think it's very important that I mention this because of the line of work that I do and what my firm does. There are going to be probably many people that think this building is way above what we should have. There will be community members that will say this is a Taj Mahal. This building is beautiful, but this is a building that is right up there with all the other schools in this area, region, Connecticut, New England, whatever. This is a beautiful school that we should have had many, many years ago. So when I look at it, although it's impressive, I will also say that is pretty normal of what schools get nowadays. So when anyone says to you, or if anybody in the community says, wow, we met the budget, that was the main thing, we're still under budget actually, and this school really deserves every bit of money that we put into it. And we deserve it for the amount of years that we were in a pretty dilapidated facility. So don't look at it as a school that is ostentatious. Look at it as something we should have had a long time ago that meets the standards of today's education.
I don't think we have to look much further than one town east of us to understand what doing it on.
And we did it.
Not
to bash them.
Right.
But we did it right. We did it right from the get-go.
Yeah. So I agree.
Like the field, if you can touch on that field. First of all, where is that going to be?
That field is going to be where the parking lot was. There's going to be a field there where the student parking was.
Parking lot,
Yeah,
yep.
student parking was. That's going to be a field. That's why it's all ripped up right now.
There are actually a couple of fields going up there.
Yeah, but the turf field.
We're netting one new field out of this.
We are
right?
netting one new field, yeah.
And the expense for that is included within the existing budget?
It's still within the budget because there's still contingency money that we were able to use for it, and there's still money that's still in contingency. We had to wait a very long time for some of these items because we had to make sure that abatement and all the other issues that come up very late down the line in construction were addressed, and feels like the committee feels that it's there.
Does that suggest that preliminary findings on the abatement are not as draconian as, are we far enough into that process?
I believe we're far enough into it. They're at least, they started right when school got out. I mean, as everyone knows who's on social media, there were numerous pictures taken in front of the entry, which ended up getting posted, and people were there until the 25th or 26th of June. Literally, the fences went up the day after, and that was closed off, and the plastic was going up. So they've been doing it for at least a month now.
Now, Mike, what about residents who might think that it's not ornate enough, that it's not, doesn't have that feng shui, and that it's just not quite up to their standards?
I would like to meet that person who feels that.
What about the?
I'm chuckling as you say that.
What
But
about the other end of it? You alluded to these, quotes, Taj Mahal critics. Have you received that kind of a blowback?
no, I haven't heard anything about it. Well,
You're
listen,
just anticipating.
I'm anticipating it because it is a absolutely beautiful inside,
State-of-the-art
outside, state-of-the-art structure. And I'm only saying it because we're going to hear it, and I'm just addressing it now because I could tell you right now,
Right.
it's not anything that is not normal in other communities to have something this nice.
And why would you build to last year's or yesterday's standards? All right, if
We're
that
many years
individual, if that perhaps a soon-to-appear individual makes those kind of complaints, you ask them the same question about investments they'd make in their own home.
Yeah.
And
And, you know, the point is, with all respect to Town Hall, the high school is the premier public building in a community. More people from out of town see the high school, people in town have occasion to use it. There's more public space to be used there. And so it is the facility that gets the most use and the most exposure.
That and the library.
And the library.
that's right. Good, thank you, Mike. Anything further? Old business? New business?
Yeah, it's a piece of business. I don't know where I got the memo, but on.
This came in our packet, yes.
Zoom Shapiro, July 15th?
Yeah.
So they're beginning the process in September.
The process has already begun, and that's just a communication memo.
Right.
Okay.
The only question I had on this
Beginning field work.
is when did the AICPA issue their statement on auditing standard number 1.14? Is that a relatively new statement?
It's been a couple of years. I can find out exactly. Yeah.
So is it safe to say this is a general reminder that we're moving the process up this year in anticipation of getting it completed before the calendar year?
Oh, yeah.
Anything further under new business? Public forum? Unless Mike has something. Everybody else is unofficial or in a play. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? None. Thank you. Thank you all.